Welcome to Into the Night. I'm Nari, your guide on today's excursion down a twisted path. Be careful not to get lost. Be it dark or light, it's easy to lose your way. Are you ready? Then let's begin. Queen for a Day. Through sleepy eyes, she watched as the morning breeze blew the lace curtains. Dappled light streamed through the window, and the sweet smell of honeysuckle followed the breeze. She stretched and closed her eyes in that state between dreamland and reality. The sun brought a perfect morning to an important day. The weight of her duties suddenly brought Lydia Hightower to nearly full awakening. She nervously looked at the clock. Anxiety raced through her, and she pulled the comforter over her head, and she slumped back onto the bed. What I would give for one more normal day. She closed her eyes and fell back to sleep. Strange dreams came and went as she tossed from side to side. Pulsating sounds accompanied the dreams, and Lydia struggled to free herself from some unknown force. She jolted awake, exhausted, as a gentle rapping at her door drew her from her sleep. Miss Lydia, are you okay? Open the door for me, please." The girl dragged herself out of bed and gingerly walked across the hardwood floor. The cool boards creaked as she walked. "I'm coming, Tula." She smoothed her hair when she caught sight of herself in her vanity mirror, then realized not much would help her appearance at this point. She reached the door and opened it slowly. "Oh, Miss Lydia, you aren't anywhere near ready. Here, hold these. I'll be right back." The woman placed an armload of clothes into Lydia's arms, then trotted down the hallway, shutting the door behind her. Lydia spread the garments across her bed. Soon Tula knocked on the door once again. Lydia stared at her, not sure how Tula managed to balance a tray of breakfast foods while holding on to a rather large cloth case. "Lydia, you need to eat something, and I know you need this." Tula glanced down at the bag hanging from her arm. "I'll set the tray on your vanity, but the two of us need to get busy making you more presentable." Lydia sighed. "I know. I guess I just have to accept the inevitable. But I don't want to." "Now, girl, don't think like that. You have been given the highest honor by the village. People look up to you. Little girls see you as everything they aspire to be. You have to look good for the coronation." Tula patted the chair by the vanity, and Lydia walked slowly over and sat down. Feeling as though she walked a mile through water, she felt exhaustion even after sleeping late. "Let's start with your hair. What I would give to have gorgeous red locks like these." Tula paused and looked at her own reflection in the mirror. "It's no wonder I was never considered for this honor. This blonde mop of mine is unruly as the day is long. I'd make a terrible queen." Tula set to work brushing Lydia's flowing auburn hair. "Now it's going to take a while, and I may pull and tug a little bit, but that's the only way to turn this gorgeous hair into the traditional updo." Lydia nodded and smiled slightly at her companion. "Tula, I couldn't do this without you. I'd still be hiding under my blankets if you weren't here to prod me along. I know I don't have any choice in this." Tula stared at her in the mirror. "No, you don't, and there's no sense regretting what must be. As awful as it seems, it only lasts for a day, and then you'll be free of your terrible burden. I do understand your feelings, but all that can be done now is to show your strength of character." "You're right, Tula. This is my destiny." Patiently, Tula wound Lydia's hair into a magnificent hairdo worthy of a queen. Patting it gently, Tula said, "I think it turned out lovely." Even Lydia had to agree that her hair had never been so beautiful. "Now, let's spend the rest of our time together talking about happy times. We've had so many." Soon the women talked and laughed until tears formed on their lashes. sharing stories of childhood adventures and teenage mishaps. It's all part of growing up, my dear friend. Lydia squeezed Tula's hand. I'm glad you've been with me every step of the way. And I'm glad you're here with me now. Tears welled in Tula's eyes. Me too, honey. Me too. After a moment of silence, the two took to compose themselves. Tula tried to sound as chipper as possible. While I start on your makeup, how about we share stories about other coronations? I think the earliest one I can remember is when we were 3. My mother forced me to wear those black shoes that were too big for my feet, and I clip-clopped everywhere like a horse. Laughter broke out between them. I remember those shoes. Those awful boys even whinnied at you. I'd forgotten all about that. They sure made me mad that day. That was the same year Mother forced me to wear that hideous pink dress with the rough material that poked me all day. You ended up with a rash from it, didn't you? I did. It was terrible. I wanted to strip naked and run home. Wouldn't that have been a sight? Tula and Lydia doubled over in laughter and couldn't catch their breaths. Oh, girl, we have been through some times. That we have. The clock chimed. Tula took a deep breath. We'd better get your makeup finished, then get you dressed. Nothing but the finest silks for you today. Lydia's face fell, but she sat patiently while her friend applied the final touches to her makeup, and then helped her slip into the folds of silk. Jewels and pearls adorned the dress, and when Tula made all the necessary adjustments, they stared into the mirror. Lydia, you look like you stepped out of a fairy tale. I guess I have, in a way. You're stunning. I'm in awe of how beautiful you are. A finer queen has never lived. Lydia looked at her reflection and smiled. The clock chimed again. The time had come for Lydia to make her way to the courtyard on the castle grounds. A carriage waited for her outside her parents' home. She wouldn't see her mother or father before she left. They'd said their goodbyes the evening before, but promised her they'd be in the crowd. Before stepping into the carriage, Lydia turned to see the only home she'd ever known. From now on, everything would be different. She couldn't worry about that now, however. She needed to fulfill her role and serve her people. Lydia Hightower was the past. Today, she was Queen Lydia. The carriage rattled down the cobblestone street, and the horse's hooves caused Lydia to laugh. Her memory went back to that long-ago coronation day. Me in my hideous scratchy dress. Tula in those awful shoes. The laughter broke the tension for her, and as they approached the courtyard, she smiled and waved to the adoring people. Young and old alike flocked to the castle for the ceremony. The future of her people rested on her shoulders. The carriage slowed, then stopped, at the steps of the castle. Thousands of people cheered when Lydia was assisted from the coach. She smiled and waved, and more cheers erupted. The excitement of the crowd could be felt. The people, elated to have such a beautiful queen, were abuzz across the courtyard and even beyond to the streets of the village that crisscrossed like a giant labyrinth. The ceremony itself became a blur to Lydia. She received the blessing from the priest and felt when the massive crown was placed on her head as she knelt before the altar. When she stood, she felt her transformation, and the people gasped in awe at how beautiful their new queen was. They knew she was theirs. They knew their village would be strengthened by her, and that she was one to be revered. Now unable to walk under the weight of her dress and crown, a transformed Lydia was carried by castle guards into the castle. The humming from the crowd reverberated through the stones of the courtyard and into the castle itself. Their voices rose until even the air reverberated with the sound. Her sentries carried her gently to the sacred chamber reserved only for the queen. and her courtiers. Her bed filled the center of the room. Lydia's body vibrated once placed on the silken sheets and set to work immediately. Her now bulbous body quivered, and she no longer looked like a girl. Her growing girth rolled and undulated as she squirmed to fulfill her duties. In this one day, Queen Lydia of the Hive would produce thousands of eggs. She embodied the future generation to come, and she fulfilled her responsibilities dutifully. One after another, she laid her eggs, which were carefully tended to by her servants. Lydia would never leave this chamber. She couldn't, even if she wanted to. The changes in her body now made it impossible for her to walk again. Hours passed, and she tired. Through sleepy eyes, she stared out the window that gave her a view of her village. She watched as an evening breeze blew the lace curtains. Dappled light streamed through the window, and the sweet smell of honeysuckle followed the breeze. Spent, her life faded away, and the sunset brought a perfect ending to an important day. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Into the Night Anthology podcast. Written by Caroline Giamanco, narrated by Nari. Theme music by Nico Rodriguez. All other original music, sound design, and editing by Omenhawk Studios. You can find our links in the show notes. Into the Night is on your favorite podcatcher, so make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review to help other excursionists to join us. I'll see you next time. And remember, whether in the shadows or in the daylight, all twisted paths lead you into the night. Into the Night Anthology is a Creative Typo Entertainment production.
If you had to pick just one thing to entertain you for the rest of your life, what would you choose? Creative Typo Entertainment is a storytelling network of renowned indie creators with decades of experience dedicated to helping you answer that question. Do you have an affinity for cosmic horror, role-playing, and entrancing yet mysterious storytelling? Check out our actual play D&D podcast, Microphones and Monsters, and easy-to-binge 30 to 45-minute episodes. And if that piqued your interest, be sure to check out the spin-off of Microphones and Monsters, DreadTech Inc., for a fast-paced, action-packed, dystopian horror real-play D&D story. Or maybe pop culture puns are more your style. A Fool's Quest is a D&D role-playing comedy podcast. Each episode is under an hour, so you can keep up with the heroes and the villains in this gut-busting, slapstick story with deep lore. And for something a little more serious, with much mystery and many suspenseful moments built in the same world as A Fool's Quest, check out the spin-off, Ethereal Embrace. Or maybe audio dramas are more your speed. Check out Stick Shift Incorporated, a serial drama about life, death, and capitalism, set in a fictional version of modern-day Vancouver, British Columbia. Do you want your stories in smaller bites? Check out Into the Night, an anthology podcast. Each story in this thrilling and twisted anthology explores the unexpected and leaves you yearning for more, all in around 10 to 15 minutes per episode. Or our newest audio drama follows Emily, who might be the cause of the end of humanity. Emily is an anomaly. Chaos incarnate. In this story, Emily twists and turns between the lines, trying to figure out who her friends are, who is trying to manipulate her, and who is trying to kill her as she tries to uncover the truth about what is happening to her. And if you enjoy watching your stories live, join us on Creative Typo's Twitch channel for a dark and winding campaign adventure through fantastical worlds like A Cursed Kingdom and the Fey Realms in Elder Brain's Crown of the Oathbreaker. Find all this and more at creativetypo.com.